Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had all of you had a great lunch break and are ready for our afternoon sessions. Before we third block, this afternoon at 5, I would like to remind you that in parallel to this panel, we have other exciting sessions taking place in the room Saló de Plens on the first floor. Feel free to check them out if those of these topics are of interest of you. Now here we are about to dive into a session that highlights the importance of a space as a driver of regional cooperation. This discussion will explore how space initiatives can foster collaboration between different regions across the world, helping to strengthen partnerships and drive innovation in the global space economy. Today, we are fortunate to have the participation of 4 regions leading the way in space cooperation: Scotland, Emilia-Romagna, Catalonia, and NEREUS, the network of European regions using space technologies. This session will be chaired by Alberto Royo, the Special Envoy for Technology, Innovation and Science at the delegation of the Government of Catalonia to the European Union. Based in Brussels, Albert is responsible for promoting Catalonia tech strategies and fostering international partnerships. He also manages the Disruptive and Emerging Technology Alliance, DETA, supporting cooperation in areas like new space, AI, and cybersecurity. Remember to open the Congress app in the Pulse section. You could answer the question related to this discussion. We will see the results at the end. So please join me in welcoming Albert Royo and our panelists to the stage.
I think this is...
Martin, over there, please. Roya, here. Thank you so much. So, welcome back. I hope you have enjoyed the lunch. Now we are back to business, and we're happy to have with us this representation, which is so interesting, of people who are representing governments or associations of governments working on space issues. We have Mr. Martin Johnson, EU Director at the Scottish Government, who is based in Brussels. We also have Ms. Maria Galindo, Secretary for Digital Policies at the Government of Catalonia. We have Mr. Andrea Resca, representing the Strategic Aerospace Forum of Emilia-Romagna in Italy. We have Ms. Bärbel Deisting from bavAIRia, the space cluster in Bavaria in Germany. And last but not least, we have Ms. Roya Ayazi, Secretary General of NEREUS, the network of European regions using space technologies. So as you can see, we have, I would say it's the first female majority panel of the day. We're happy about this. Thank you so much for joining us in this panel. And this is a panel that we will devote to discuss, as it was explained, well, basically how regions can cooperate in space policies, with which goals they do so, and how space industry is supporting regional and local economies. So we may start by basically asking Mr. Johnson. He is the representative of the invited ecosystem, so let me start with Mr. Johnson about the National Strategy for Economic Transformation, which was adopted by the Scottish Government 1 year ago, whose main slogan was delivering economic prosperity. It includes a chapter dedicated to the space industry, if we are not wrong. So the question would be, apart from what we have already heard from Minister Lochhead this morning, how basically the space industry is contributing to the economic and social development of your region, of Scotland.
So thank you, Albert, and for the chance to be in the panel. You mentioned the National Strategy for Economic Transformation, and indeed space is embedded in many government strategies. And the innovation strategy last year is another good example. Space is a really growing sector in Scotland. The growth has been huge in the last 5 years. We have around 200 companies. We have 6,500 employees. They're very high-value jobs. Space is a really, really important part of our economy in Scotland, as I know it is here. And it's also an employer all around the country. Scotland has quite a concentration of economic activity in the centre of the country, Glasgow and Edinburgh. The space industry is providing jobs and opportunities in the north of the country, in the south of the country, also in Glasgow and Edinburgh too. I mentioned that Glasgow is the biggest manufacturer of small satellites in Europe at the moment. But the economic benefits are very well spread. They also connect up our educational institutions, our universities, with our businesses, with our political systems. So there's a good connectivity between all of these areas. And one other thing I'd say is it's really, a number of the speakers this morning talked about the applications of the space sector. Mm-hmm. So I know that in the south of Scotland, for example, in the area just north of the English border, we have a great agricultural economy there. And the South of Scotland Enterprise Agency published a strategy last month about how you can use the space sector to help with agriculture. And we spoke about precision agriculture with space data. So things like mapping the activity of the animals, the land use, how you rotate grazing of cattle on land. There's a really amazing thing you can do with space data there. So it's really helping specific bits of the economy, water management we spoke about. So this sector is growing. It has a reach into many areas of our lives and many parts of the economy, but it's bringing benefits to the whole of Scotland as well, not just the traditional economic heartlands. So it's a really exciting sector for us, I think.
Thank you so much for these insights. Really interesting. Let me move now to Catalonia. We have Mrs. Maria Galindo. Maria, you've been previously in various roles within the government of Catalonia, but you have been recently appointed as a new Secretary for Digital Policies. So congratulations for that. And in fact, you are the person who is responsible of overseeing Catalonia's new space strategy. Could you please tell us a little bit about the impact that this implementation of this new space strategy is having on the Catalan economy?
Thank you so much, Albert. I'm really pleased to be here today. And similarly to what our colleague from Scotland was saying, for Catalonia, it's also like a milestone to have a truly developed new space sector, because it offers opportunity to become more competitive, to create jobs, to attract talent, to attract investments. And so I think we're all on the same page regarding economic growth and prosperity. So from the Secretary for Digital Policies, we pursue economic, social, and territory digital development, or how to improve economic, social, and territorial development through digitalization. And we specifically work with 5 different technologies: 5G, 6G, blockchain, AI, quantum technologies, soon to come, and NewSpace. So NewSpace is one of the main focus. For this, we work with the ecosystem, and we work with the Institute for Space Studies of Catalonia, Foundation ITOCAT, and the Cartographic Institute of Catalonia, in developing, in managing the ecosystem, in promoting research activities, but also very much focusing on how research transfers to the market. So really coming up with use cases as to promote how space technology can really help us in facing the challenges. And we also have very interesting use cases in agriculture, with fire and deforestation, and now with the PhilApp that was presented earlier this morning, we'll also get to develop more use cases to really fight climate change and become more resilient. We're also very much focusing on entrepreneurship, on international relations, and I think the Dita will talk about it later, so I won't do the spoiler now. But also in congresses like this one, and this congress I'm very happy and pleased to see that more and more it's very international, and we will also be in IAC Milano in 2 weeks' time with 14 Catalan companies. We work for the talent and also for the companies through the Digital Catalonia Alliance with 100 companies. I don't have the exact numbers for the new space sector in Catalonia, but I can tell you that the ICT sector or digital sector accounts for 9–12% of Catalonia's GDP. So that's very much what we need to work on.
Brilliant. Great. Now we move to Emilia-Romagna. We move to Italy, Bologna. We have Andrea and Resca coming from Bologna, from Emilia-Romagna region. You represent the Strategic Aerospace Forum of the Emilia-Romagna region. Could you please tell us a bit about this initiative? And also additionally, if I may, we understand that your new space strategy includes a significant emphasis on research. Up to what point or how is this focus contributing to the advancement of your space industry in your region?
No, thank you for this invitation. So Emilia-Romagna is a sort of newcomer in the space sector, and this is the reason why in 2021 the regional government decided to establish this forum. So the idea is to put together what means companies, a few companies that are related to the sector. It mainly is the so-called innovation ecosystem of the Emilia-Romagna region and the research environment. So the fact that the main reason behind this decision is the transition from the combustion engine and to an electric engine. As all of you know, Emilia-Romagna has a long tradition in so-called motorsport, like Ferrari, Lamborghini, Ducati, and what is going on in these days is something that is also worrying our regional government. And so the idea is to see in the space sector that is, as already been mentioned also this morning, has actually a lot of potentialities. Mainly for sectors like we're established sectors that is in Emilia-Romagna that is related to mechanics, technological materials, and on all this kind of things. So the transition is supposed to be easier in comparison to move to a completely different sectors. As far as concerns research, the innovation ecosystem is characterized by different, we could say, components, elements. And many of them have put emphasis of the presence of university research centers. So several calls are just dedicated to research. So companies that want to actually apply necessarily needs to have an agreement with the research centers. Otherwise, you cannot have access to related funds. So we have a so-called specific law in order to attract investment. The attract investment is allocated only, funds are allocated if only the company commits to recruit researchers. Otherwise, this money will not be assigned. So there are different instruments that try to, to invite the investors and center to collaborate with development of the territory. Even so, that there is a so-called publish of Paris logic that is driving mainly academics mainly. So we try to fight against this logic in order to try to involve as much as possible researchers to help us the development of our territory.
Thank you so much. Very interesting. Bärbel, Mrs. Deisting, you're traveling from Munich. You represent the space vertical within the bavAIRia industrial cluster. Please, could you explain what kind of companies do you have in this cluster, space companies you have in this cluster? We've seen that most of the governmental strategies are quite new, year 2020, 2021, 2022. Is that the case in bavAIRia as well?
Okay, no, I think the cluster I'm working for and where I'm responsible for space and space applications was created around 2004. Very early in advance, and we have aviation, space, and space applications, or space downstream applications. And I think in this time, that was the first cluster which I know, which has really space downstream applications, not only the upstream part. And we have, in bavAIRia, there are more than 500 companies working in the field of space downstream applications, and aviation, and the cluster has more than 300 members. I think 1/3 of them are space and space downstream applications. And we have LSIs, we have big companies, highly specialized SMEs and startups. Of course, we are amongst, I think the first is a business incubation locations when this program started. So there are lots of startups as well. I think there's everything available in bavAIRia, and of course we have universities and other associations which supporting the networking amongst the actors.
Plus the government, the regional government as well.
Yes, for sure.
Yes. That's good, thank you so much. And last but not least, we have Roya Ayazi. You're the Secretary General of NEREUS. Can you explain to us what NEREUS is and what are your goals?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the kind invitation, and I transmit to you kind greetings from our president, the NEREUS president. He would like to be here, but I came. NEREUS is a network of European regions, and we have 3 of them here on stage. NEREUS is about the use of space data, Earth observation data, Copernicus. And we work on 3 main axes. The first one being political dialogue, advocacy on behalf of regional users, feeding a bit and channeling the needs of regions to the political level, to the level of European policymaker, also making the activities, the capabilities, the knowledge, the experiences in regions more transparent, and bringing them also in policy context, showing what impact does that have on public policies outside the space sector. The second, very important, is interregional networking partnerships, creating interregional cooperations so regions can experiment, regions can learn about what are the potentials of space, can integrate them into regional activities, and also, and that's very important, the exchange on regional space strategies, regional smart specialization strategies where space is integrated. We bring the regions together to exchange on that and further develop. And in all this, we contribute to regions to develop, to shape their regional ecosystems, space systems, and community.
Great. So basically, you're leading the European Association of Regions having their own space strategy. So I guess that you may have a clear view of the role that these regions can play in Europe's space sector. What should this role be? How should regional governments contribute to what member states, the European Commission or ESA are already doing when it comes to space policies?
I think regions have a fundamental role. NEREUS is about the use of space. And when we talk about the use of space, regions have 2 hats on, so to say, 2 roles. One of them is being a user themselves for public purposes and also showing and making these potentials more transparent, sharing with other regions what are the benefits. Because if we look at the regional level, the challenges that are there, they don't stop at the borders of Catalonia, they go beyond. They go the Mediterranean challenges, the Alpine challenges, and there to exchange, to work with other regions is crucial. Another important point is regions as policy and economic decision makers. And their regions play an important role in shaping the policies that stimulate innovation, that stimulate entrepreneurship, that attract investments and companies to territories and linking them. And I think their regions have an important role to play if we look at the use of space. But also if we look, the Congress is about new space. Also if we look about new space, the true connection is between the space sector and the non-space sector. And their regions are a privileged scale because they host different economic communities, different sectors, and they make policies for these different sectors. And I think overall said in a nutshell, regions are a very important link for user engagement, are a very important link for connecting space with non-space and bringing it into public policy contexts.
Good points. Bärbel, if I may ask you, you may know that the EU is set to achieve its strategic sovereignty in the coming years. And the EU space program is a relevant part of this strategy. You come from the biggest and most industrialized EU member state. How do you think that space enterprises and governments can collaborate to achieve this sovereignty?
Of course, I am from Germany, but I'm not speaking for Germany.
I understand.
Nevertheless, I think what we have to do is that we join forces and that we are really working together in Europe, strategically and technically, of course, with respect to innovation on the one hand. Of course, on the other hand, we have intra-European competition, and I think this is important as well because this makes us strong. And this enables us to really to be among the top parts in the world where space is being developed. So I like this balance between these both things. And I think this year is a good opportunity in order to exchange and to see how we can use these synergies being created in every country to go ahead and to move ahead. And this should be supported by the politicians, the regions, and of course the agencies, from my point of view.
Sounds great. Please do jump in if you want to add anything or if you disagree. I'm now looking at Andrea, like Germany, Italy's regionalized country. What do you think the role of regions should be in supporting Europe's and member states' space strategies?
Yes, I think that Roya has already mentioned many elements for answers to this question. I would like to add one specifically. So I think that regions are closer to the ground, closer to the territory. And I think that this role should be exploited in a more effective way. What I'm talking about is about the question, for example, of the knowledge of the territory. So we used to do, in my opinion, a lot of surveys about the numbers of companies, about the all these numbers that relate to a territory. I think that is very important, of course, but it's not sufficient. I think that, for example, as far as concern, relatively, at least for us, a small sector like space, we should know actors, so I mean companies, but also research centers, university and departments within universities that are studying this topic, to know actually personally, to have a relationship one-to-one, to know exactly what are their everyday problems, and see what are the strategies that are trying to follow in order to achieve their objectives. I think that this is not done sufficiently, and also now in our case, we are trying to actually to involve. Of course, this work has to be done from the research environment, from the centers and university. I think that this is a way in which region can actually help the national level, but also EU level, in order to provide first-hand information and knowledge in order, after that, to implement the national policies and also the European policy.
Maria, you may know that all the governments represented here are part of DITA, the Rapid and Emerging Technology Alliance. What is it? Tell us about this, and what does it have to do with NewSpace?
I know they are, and I know that you've been central also in building DITA, so thank you so much, Albert, you and along the team, Guillermo, Veronica, that have also been crucial to building this. Building from what has been said, we need to cooperate to compete globally, right? And we need to do so both at the regional, local level with institutions alignment with the private investments and public investments, building public-private partnerships, working with the ecosystem, but also at the international level. The DITA is a global network of governments that represent international leading technology hubs. It's, we could say it's a sort of policy lab that focuses on innovation and technology development, but making it very plausible that we need to focus on this and safeguard human rights, ethics, democracy, and also the cultural diversity. So yes to technology development, but let's all work for this to be in line with our democracies. As of now, and this is a recently created alliance, 17 governments from the 5 continents are taking place, from Massachusetts to Quebec in Canada, Kyoto in Japan, Gyeonggi in South Korea. And it works with 5 areas of our working groups, one on artificial intelligence, another on cybersecurity, quantum technologies, digital rights, and NewSpace. So for the NewSpace, Scotland, Emilia-Romagna, Bavaria, Catalonia as well, Occitanie, South Australia, Costa Rica, Buenos Aires are part of this working group, and Azores in Portugal will also be joining recently the group. I want to take this moment to also thank our invited ecosystem in the NewSpace Congress this year, and also invite formally bavAIRia for next edition in 2025 to become our guest ecosystem for the NewSpace Congress.
Thank you.
Wow, great news.
Wow.
Brilliant. Martin, looking up to the future, or looking up to the sky, what do you think the role of nations like Catalonia or Scotland will be in the development of the space industry? Would you envisage common space projects developed by several regional governments, for instance? And that's a question that I will also offer to all the other speakers.
So I think governments in our regions will continue to have an important role in bringing people together. So Andrea talked about being closer to the ground and able to draw people together, have a kind of convening or an organizing power. I think there definitely is a role for this collaboration, whether it's bilaterally in some cases. We were talking last night about sustainability and space and how we can develop strategies on this. But also collectively. So from a UK and a Scottish perspective, we are back in the Horizon Europe project. There are some opportunities to work together potentially there. With Copernicus, we're also now back in Copernicus. We can look at analysing the data that comes out of that in a collaborative way. Ms. Galindo was talking about the DITA initiative. So I think both bilaterally but also multilaterally there are lots of opportunities. And I think our governments will have an important role. One other area I wanted to mention was funding. It depends a little bit on the competencies of different governments, but we also will continue to have a role in funding and also making available borrowing for business. So in Scotland, we have the Scottish National Investment Bank, and that is lending money into the space sector. And that kind of role can also be important. But I think a big yes, you know, in a number of different ways, there's an important role to play for countries like ours and governments like ours.
Sounds great. Bärbel.
From my perspective, it is not so much providing additional funding, it is about making space work in other sectors. This means we need regulations, we need framework conditions in order that really, for example, public organizations can use space data from Copernicus or Earth observation or whatever, from the systems we are setting in place in the EU. So I think this, from my perspective, this is a really initial step, and I know that NEREUS was quite supportive at that and communicating what is necessary from the side of the companies in order really to collaborate with especially public administrations, but also others. But when we are talking on environmental issues, then it's for sure a governmental task. And I think we have to have a look that these framework conditions and regulations are met. This is one key from my perspective.
Great. Roya?
In this connection, I think money is important. We need funding. We need better to pool resources. But knowledge is another point. And I think procurement as well. I think regions could work together to procure services, to share experience on procurement, and with the legislative framework also to make there is this European Earth Observation Center that makes really a strategic work looking at the different environmental legislation in Europe and where can Copernicus, for instance, bring an added value, and to promote these findings, to better link those knowledge with the legislative work and with the implementation of environmental policies.
Okay.
Great.
Anyone else would like to react to this?
Just for me, this point about information sharing, and there's a definite role in bringing experience from one country or region to another, and I think governments can have a role in helping facilitate that exchange, and I know that's one of the things that people in the sector can find very valuable, is the access to this knowledge from others' experiences.
An open question to all of you. Are member states, are international organizations like the EU, for instance, open enough to the proposals, to the contributions coming from regions?
No. I often feel there is space for improvement. And I also think, and in all the policy making, and especially in space policy, citizens' engagement should be really written with capital letters, and that we have also a responsibility to show what we are doing in space, but in a way that it's accessible, it's understandable for citizens.
Yeah. Any further reactions? Because in the end, we need citizens to support these policies. Otherwise, there's no way.
But we have to highlight the benefits of space to other sectors. I know Luca Del Monte was here, and he was he's also related to the ESA Business Applications, which is a program in order to bring really space to other sectors and support this. And I'm the German ESA Business Applications ambassador, and I recognize how difficult it is to bring space to other sectors because they are speaking a completely different language than we do. And we have to highlight what we mean and to explain. And this is really lots of work. And I think in order to make people understand what space can bring, we have to highlight best practices. We have to explain what we mean. What is space about? Because there are still people, when you talk to them, they say, oh, you're flying to the moon. And I say, no, I'm not flying to the moon, but you're using space as well. And they look at me and say, where? I said, your navigation system, the weather forecast, whatever. And I think that's a challenge, really, to convince everybody to use on the importance of space to translate what we are talking about. And that's another challenge. Besides this new space.
That's great. Any final remarks?
Yes, I think that also the opportunity of this so-called citizen science. I think that so far space is a sort of kind of closed world or really closed world. I think that it should be open more and then to involve the normal citizens. I'm talking about my region. I know that there are some cultural associations that are really focused on what is going on in the astronomical research, all these kind of things, but actually are not involved in a so-called wider discourse in which actually can get closer, for example, the involvement of schools, not only university, but also high school, or also middle school, or also elementary school. I think that, in order to help this sector to become common ground for people, it requires a so-called comprehensive effort from different parts of the entire society, I should say.
Thank you. Maria or Martin, would you like to add anything? Because we are out of time. So
We're out of time? Okay.
but please, we have a minute.
Okay. Me go first? Yeah, no, I completely agree with what has been said, and I think that we have more and more use cases that can be shown up, and to also understand how the new space sector impacts other sectors. And like here, we have a lot of examples. So I invite everyone to check on the different companies and everyone showcasing their services and their products. But we need to make them more visible as well at the European level, at the EC level. So perhaps next year we should invite someone from the European Commission as to be, yeah.
That's a great idea. Martin.
I was struck by the Commission Director this morning mentioning that there is a new Commission portfolio which is defence and space. So I think the visibility is coming at that level. But one of the things I was struck most by is this, in the discussion this morning, was reference to how many applications we maybe have on our mobile phone every day which rely on space data, and the extent to which our lives are increasingly supported and kind of assisted by this sector. So there's something here about that. That will obviously only expand in the years ahead, but how do we have this conversation with citizens and use that to help the sector as it grows and help solve some of the big problems we've got as well?
Great. Well, thank you so much for contributing to this open conversation. Thank you so much for this interesting exchange of views, and thank you so much to all of you for your attention. Thank you.